artificial intelligence is completely changing that game. Every single aspect, right from early discovery through to launch and through to manufacturing commercial, are completely changing. It's completely changing. Artificial intelligence has been with us for quite a long time with deep learning and artificial intelligence and large mathematical models. The computing power has gotten better and better and better. And then recently as this year, I suppose, the generative AI or Gen AI has really brought it to the forefront of the public. It means that now you can interact with artificial intelligence and get it to generate a response. And what that's really allowed the industry to do is it's sort of freed the industry in order to, I suppose, invest and continue to invest. And then what's really happening now is the acceleration of that investment. A traditional pharma company would be able to synthesize, as in make, about 1,000 molecules a year. Whereas with artificial intelligence, we can now analyze 50 billion molecules a year. And just to put that in perspective, if you were to count to 1,000, it would take about 15 minutes. And if you were to count non-stop to 50 billion, it would take 1,500 years. So if we were looking at what's happening in artificial intelligence now in the industry, we would take the full life cycle. So the full life cycle is discovery, development, launch, manufacturing, commercial, and then your interaction with your partners. And now we're able to, with artificial intelligence, enhance that bi-directional communication across these multiple channels or omni-channel for commercial. So that's really allowing the healthcare professionals to stay on top of what's really happening in the industry, which is changing very quickly. The game-changing nature is that what it's allowing us to do is it's allowing us to go from promising lead to drug-like properties in medicine, to be able to say, okay, we have all these promising molecules, but these will be efficacious in humans. And that's pushing a huge pipeline of molecules towards manufacturing and commercial. It's reducing the cost of the development of molecules. It's increasing the success rate because you early identify things that are a problem. It increases the speed with which you can launch it. And it also allows you to communicate with the healthcare professionals and the patients about the efficacy of the medicine. So every single aspect, right from early discovery through to launch and through to manufacturing commercial, are completely changing. So that allows us to look at promising molecules. When our clients get sight of promising molecules, what they normally get is strong biology, early chemistry, mouse experiments. To turn that into human medicine is quite a challenge because we diverged from a common ancestor with mice about 65 million years ago. So there's quite a biological difference between mice and humans. So now with artificial intelligence and these large mathematical models, we can look at the metabolic profile, the half-life in humans, the protein-to-protein docking, protein-to-ligand binding. So this ability to understand the protein structure, how it folds, how it connects, and how it works in the human body, that allows us to do that at a much greater scale, which allows then us to see the difference between a promising molecule and a drug that has, drug-like properties in humans. That's a huge thing. And I suppose that's one of the largest areas. And it's been going for a long time. There are now platforms that are very well established that help with that. We're seeing changes in the way contracts are being formed between tier 1 pharma companies and IT firms. So IT firms are agreeing contracts where the outcome is a number of promising molecules over a period of time. So the outcome is focused on the discovery. That's a huge change now for an IT firm to be dealing that way. In terms of development, we're seeing a huge amount of little things all happening together. So if you look at what's required in order to take a promising molecule through into clinical trials and the results and endpoints from clinical trials through into launch, then there are rate limiting steps. And poor information flow between those steps is probably the number one cause of the slowness in the process. it can take years. Whereas artificial intelligence with meaningful contextualized data flow really allows that speed of information flow, that ability to connect, to investigate, to discover what's happening in order to accelerate that. It also allows us to do things that are more routine in a more routine way. So if you have a molecule that's like 80% the same as the one that you've just launched, well, why not just checklist the 80% of that in the new product introduction and just do the 20% of new testing? Artificial intelligence allows us to be able to analyze that, understand that, automatically produce those reports, and really accelerate that timeline. We're talking about taking, 6 months, a year out of that launch life cycle. So where we're seeing AI actually making an impact right now in life science is in many areas. If we just quickly take it, in discovery, we're seeing the discovery of new molecules and also those drug-like properties in that medicine as opposed to really strong biology in mouse experiments. We're also seeing the impact in artificial intelligence in manufacturing. We're seeing digital twins of bioreactors and chemical reactors that are now equivalent to the actual chemistry that's happening in the vessel. And that allows us to understand, have a deeper, richer understanding of the chemistry, and therefore be able to reduce the variation in that process. And not only reduce the variation in that process, but introduce new products into those reactors much faster because we understand it. We're also seeing the impact with regards to supply chain and artificial intelligence. The supply chain area is quite mature with regards to access to the transport networks and all of that. And if we have meaningful contextualized information coming from the manufacturing campaigns, we can now link real delivery dates, real forecasts to the supply chain decisions. And there are commercial products right now that are able to make those decisions on behalf of humans. In fact, in artificial intelligence, our customers sometimes call the cloud an AI marketplace. The game-changing nature is that what it's allowing us to do is it's allowing us to go from promising lead and hits to drug-like properties in medicine. To be able to say, okay, we have all these promising molecules, but these will be efficacious in humans. And that's pushing a huge pipeline of molecules towards manufacturing and commercial. So the pipeline has increased enormously. And I suppose one of the most important things about being a life science company is that you have to have a strong life cycle. You have to have a strong pipeline because the pipeline is what determines the future of the company. If your major medicines are coming off patent, you need to replace that revenue as that patent cliff happens with new molecules. So we're seeing a huge number of new molecules coming in. And one of the issues with that is that that means that the manufacturing and launch is now a bit of a bottleneck because we have to be able to commercialize and make these medicines. But we're also seeing artificial intelligence change in that space so that we can speed that up. We can speed up our interactions with contract suppliers. We can transfer out medicines into the contract base as well as manufacture new medicines. And then in commercial, it allows us to keep the healthcare professionals up to speed. So if you think about what's game changing, it's reducing the cost of the development of molecules. It's increasing the success rate because you early identify things that are a problem. It increases the speed with which you can launch it. And it also allows you to communicate with the healthcare professionals and the patients about the efficacy of the medicine. Every single aspect, right from early discovery through to launch and through to manufacturing and commercial, are completely changing. Meaningful contextualized data is the bedrock of the entire technology that's growing at the moment. If you don't have meaningful contextualized data, then you can't use the artificial intelligence to connect to it to bring you the insights. You can't move to a data-driven decision-making system. If you don't have access to the data, then you can't use the technology. It essentially is the foundation of everything that's happening. And we're seeing a huge amount of investment in the flow of that data and the security of that data, because a lot of the time these pieces of equipment in these factories were designed at a time when that data wasn't normally connected to, it wasn't normally collected. So we have a lot of data that could be vulnerable if it's not protected correctly. So this, operations technology, machines that make medicine, that operations technology security or OT security is a huge aspect of what we're talking about. And that ability to create meaning in the data so that it's not just, tags and, numbers that nobody really understands, that we now say, well, I know exactly what that means. And I know there's a similar number over here, and I know what the difference is. So that when I use the artificial intelligence, I can say, okay, well, the yield was this at that point, it was this at that point, it was this at that point. The flow of that data is really important. The best example of why the data is a great foundation for artificial intelligence is in supply chain. There are systems now that are commercially available that allow the artificial intelligence to make decisions or suggest decisions to the human operators to say, you got that into the warehouse a little late. To make the customer delivery date, you have to change the mode of transport. Here are the options, here's the recommendation. Or the supply chain has now been interrupted, but we have these options to still make that date. You can use those low-level decisions for artificial intelligence to just make those decisions right now and change the way it's happening in the supply chain. And over a certain threshold of value, the humans can be involved. So that human-involved artificial intelligence, that cyber physical systems, that's happening right now. And it's a really clear example as to where if you have the data about exactly where the products are and you're connected to the transport network, which we have been for a long time, it allows you to merge the two and make these decisions automatically. In terms of manufacturing, the impact that artificial intelligence is having now is, again, it's quite a nice case for generative AI, because if you have meaningful contextualized data flow and you have advanced measurement systems, you have process analytical technologies, then the insights that can be generated from that data can be accessed by the investigators, by the tech transfer people, by the manufacturing people, in order to speed up all of the things that are important in manufacturing. We're not seeing automatic investigations, we're not seeing automatic reports, but we're seeing the preparation of all the information required for an investigation, the preparation of all the information and the report then to be validated by humans. So that's where it's at right now. And in terms of commercial, the final thing with commercial is that it's very mature, that artificial intelligence, where you're looking at a healthcare professional and the personal journey that healthcare professional is going on with regards to your medicine. And now we're able to, with artificial intelligence, enhance that bi-directional communication across these multiple channels or omni-channel for commercial. So that's really allowing the healthcare professionals to stay on top of what's really happening in the industry, which is changing very quickly. It's always been tricky in life science when you're making medicine to be such a strong science-based, technology-based company, and at the same time manufacturing with a paper batch record. So you're this amazing company, and then you invite the employees in and you say, okay, here's a pen and a piece of paper. This is our tech. There is a disconnect in nearly every industry at the minute between the new generations of workers and the retiring generation of workers. There's quite a gap in how they communicate with text-based SOPs, standard operating procedures, instead of video, which would be where most people are getting their content now if you're in your early 20s. So I think the generative AI is really going to allow us to change the way the young people are going to work in our industry, because we need to make sure that the industry is designed and enhance the skills of the young people coming in. And I think artificial intelligence and generative AI and video-based GMP, standard operating procedures, are all going to change that. And the more connected the data gets, the more technologically advanced the company. Because if you have meaningful contextualized data flowing, it allows you then to take advantage of this new technology. I think C-suite executives are now seeing that we can exploit the technology for value, for patients and for shareholders. So we're seeing now that the executives are not just interested in making sure there's investment in order to have medicine made automatically. We're seeing investment in technology in order to improve how we're getting medicine to patients. We're seeing executives realize that if we can exploit technology and data correctly, we can be faster. Because in the end, it's not the big that are going to win, it's the fast. And if you can be big and fast, you're going to be number one. New product introduction and launch and clinical trials and development, artificial intelligence is having an enormous impact. We're able to now use the full data set in order to be able to set the dose. We're also able to write data products that improves the information flow all the way from phase 1 through to phase 3 in commercial launch. That's allowing us to cut those timelines in almost half. In GMP manufacturing, we're now able to get information for artificial intelligence in order to drive insights. We're able to take advantage of digital twins in bioreactors. We're able to take advantage of the spectral data in process analytical technology in order to be able to reduce the variation in the manufacturing. And if you can reduce variation in manufacturing, you're going to be world class at manufacturing. In terms of commercial, our ability to connect with the healthcare professional, to really understand all of the channels that they use to access this information. The life science industry is changing so quickly that almost by the time you finish your medical degree, what you learned at the beginning is now obsolete. So our ability to go with omni-channel, bi-directional communication to healthcare professionals, to keep them up to date with how they can help their patients, artificial intelligence is completely changing that game. So when I was talking to my grandfather, he was an engineer and he worked in the aerospace industry, and what was happening around physics and rockets and planes completely transformed the 20th century. And he said to me, you need to work in the industry that's changing the most. And when I look at this industry now, the life science industry, I see the fact that we're on the cusp of something that no one has ever seen before, an ability to cure patients and to take away some of the pain that's happening in society right now. That's unparalleled. I think we're at the start of the biocentury, and it's extremely exciting to be part of that. But not only is it exciting, I think when you look at the purpose in life, when you think, well, why is it do I get out of bed in the morning? As annoying as that phrase might be, it's really important to be able to stand back and say, why do I do this? And I originally came from an automation engineering background, where we write the software that makes the medicine. In the old days, people made the medicine, but now it's the software. So that means that the software is the last line of defense for the patient. Our ability to write this software to make sure that the medicine is as it is in order to deliver these benefits to patients, that's a real privilege. A real privilege to be able to say, what we're doing is we're improving lives, we're making people's lives better, we're saving lives, and we're powering that patient health. That ability to apply technology to do what's important now. I have some friends who are scientists as opposed to engineers, and they're looking at what's happening tomorrow. Whereas in engineering, we're looking at what's happening today. We're making the most of now. And to be able to say that we're making the most of now to potentially save lives, there's really nothing quite as purposeful as that.